Greetings to all, this is your channel, A Latino Loose Between Books. Today we are going to enjoy Animal Farm, a novel by George Orwell, who was born in Matagari, India in 1903. His real name was Eric Blair. In addition to chronicler, teacher of journalists, literature critic and novelist, he was one of the foremost English-language essayists of the 1930s and 1940s. He is still considered the conscience of a generation and one of the most outstanding voices that have risen against all kinds of totalitarianism. He had many problems publishing Animal Farm, but it was finally published in 1945 and was a great sales success, selling more than 600,000 copies in less than 4 years and being translated into multiple languages. By 2010 it had sold more than 20 million copies worldwide and had been translated into more than 70 languages. This novel tells the story of some animals that rise up against the owner of the farm where they live and establish a system of government based on animalism, an ideology that defends the equality and freedom of all animals. However, over time, some pigs become the overbearing leaders of the farm and betray the principles of animalism, exploiting and oppressing the rest of the animals. The story begins when old Major, a plump, elderly and respected pig, calls a nightly meeting in the barn to tell them about his dream of a better life.
Comrades, what is the point of living the way we live? You have to admit it, our life is miserable, laborious, and short. We are born, they give us only the food necessary to continue breathing, and those of us who are in a position to do so, they force us to work until the last breath, and at the moment in which our usefulness comes to an end we are sacrificed with frightful cruelty. But is it a natural law? Is our land so poor that it cannot guarantee a dignified life for those who inhabit it? No. Comrades, 1,000 times, no. Then why do we continue in these miserable conditions? We have to make man disappear from the scene, and the motivating cause of our hunger and overwork will be abolished forever. Man is the only being that consumes without producing. He does not give milk, he does not lay eggs, he is too weak to pull the plow, and his speed does not even allow him to catch rabbits. However, he is the owner and lord of all the animals. He makes them work. He gives them the minimum necessary to maintain them, and the rest he keeps for himself. Our labor tills the land, our manure fertilizes it, and yet there is not one of us who owns more than his skin. Cows. How many thousands of liters of milk have you produced in the last year, and what has been done with that milk that should have been used to raise robust calves? Every last drop has ended up on the pallet of our enemies. And you hens, how many eggs have you laid this year, and how many chicks have hatched from those eggs? Everything else has gone to the market to make money for Jones and his people. Why do problems? Isn't it clear then, comrades, that all the evils of this life are born from the tyranny of human beings? Just by getting rid of the man, the fruit of our labor would be ours. Almost overnight we could be rich and free. What should we do then? To work day and night, body and soul, for the overthrow of the human race. That is my message, comrades. The rebellion, human beings steal most of the product of our labor. There, comrades, is the answer to all our.
He tells them about animalism, a doctrine that proposes the abolition of man and the brotherhood between animals. The old Major is haranguing the animals until there is a tremendous commotion because 4 large rats have come out of their holes and the dogs have launched themselves for them. The old commander proposes to vote whether or not the rats are comrades, and it comes out that, yes, that they are.
I don't have much more to say, just repeat that you always remember your duty of enmity towards man and his way of acting. Everything that walks on 2 legs is an enemy. Everything that walks on 4 legs or has wings is a friend. Also remember that in the fight against man you must not resemble him. Even if you have defeated him, do not adopt his vices. No animal should ever live in a house or sleep in a bed or wear clothes or drink alcohol or smoke tobacco, touch money or engage in trade. All the customs of man are bad, and above all, no animal should tyrannize its own species. Weak or strong, smart or elemental, we are all brothers. No animal should kill another animal. All animals are equal.
Then, the old Major teaches them a song called Beasts of England, which expresses the longing for freedom and justice of animals. Shortly after, Old Major dies, but his idea is planted in the minds of the animals. A few months later, the animals take advantage of Jones getting drunk and neglecting to feed them to riot and drive him and his men off the farm.
The animals throw into the well the bits, the rings, the chains of the dogs, the cruel knives that Mr. Jones uses to castrate pigs and lambs. In a bonfire that burns in the patio to burn the garbage, they throw the reins of the horses, the blinders, and the degrading backpacks. All the animals jump for joy when they see how the whips burn. Snowball, a lively pig, says that all animals must go around naked. In a very short time the animals had destroyed everything that reminded them of Mr. Jones. Then Napoleon, another pig, took them back to the warehouse and served everyone a double ration of corn and 2 biscuits for each dog. Then they sang Beasts of England from beginning to end 7 times in a row, and then they settled down for the night and slept as they had never slept before. When they wake up they are happy and can hardly believe that everything is theirs. Jones's house also belongs to them, but they are afraid to go in. Snowball and Napoleon ram the door and the animals enter single file, advancing very carefully, for fear of disturbing something. They take down some hams and take them out to bury them. And Boxer, a majestic horse, kicks the barrel of beer. Other than that, the entire house remains intact, and they immediately and unanimously approve that the house be preserved as a museum. No animal should live there.
Then Snowball and Napoleon reunite them. It is discovered that some pigs have learned to read and write with the help of an old spelling manual they found in the garbage. With black and white paint, Snowball crosses out Manor Farm, and on the top bar of the door he paints Animal Farm, and then on the back wall of the huge barn they write the 7 Commandments, an unchangeable law that all animals of the farm must abide by. These are the 7 commandments of animalism that the pigs write. 1. Anything that walks on 2 feet is an enemy. 2. Everything that walks on 4 legs, or has wings, is a friend. 3. No animal will wear clothes. 4. No animal will sleep in a bed. 5. No animal will drink alcohol. 6. No animal will kill another animal. 7. All animals are equal.
All animals are the same was written very clearly, and except that where it should have said friend, it read friend, and that one of the s was backwards, the wording was correct. Snowball read it aloud to the others. All the animals nodded their heads, demonstrating their total agreement, and the most intelligent began immediately to memorize the commandments. Later, the animals learned to read and write according to their abilities, but some only managed to memorize the 7 commandments or the simplified maxim, 4 legs yes, 2 legs no, which was the only thing the sheep managed to learn and which they repeated all the time. Now, comrades, let us make an honorable promise to finish the harvest in less time than it took Jones and his men. At that moment the 3 cows that had seemed uneasy for some time before began to move very loudly. They had not been milked for 24 hours and their udders were about to burst. After a moment's thought the pigs sent for buckets and milked the cows with regular success, for their feet were quite well adapted to the task. There were quickly 5 buckets of creamy, frothy milk which many of the animals looked at with great interest.
"What will be done with all that milk?" someone asked. "Jones sometimes used a part by mixing it into our food," said one of the hens.
Don't worry about the milk, comrades, exposed Napoleon, standing in front of the cubes that will be arranged. The harvest is more important. The comrade Snowball will guide them. I will continue in a few minutes. Go ahead, comrades.
The animals flocked to the hayfield to begin the harvest, and when they returned in the evening, they found that the milk had disappeared. The neighboring humans try to take back the farm by attacking the animals. The animals bravely defend themselves and manage to repel the attack. Snowball leads the battle with strategy and courage, while Napoleon barely participates. The animals celebrate their triumph and decorate the heroes. Boxer, the strongest and hardest working horse, laments having killed a man, but Snowball comforts him by saying that the only enemy is man. The animals agree that they will never use human weapons and that they will never live in the farmhouse. The animals feel happy and proud of their work and their new life. Everyone contributes according to their abilities and receives their fair share. On Sundays there is no work, breakfast is an hour later than usual, and then there is a ceremony. First the flag is hoisted, which is an old green tablecloth of Mrs. Jones with a painted white hoof and horn, and then they flock to the huge barn for a general assembly known as the meeting. There the work of the following week is planned and the resolutions always proposed by the pigs are debated. The meeting always ends with the Song of Beasts of England.
The afternoon was dedicated to leisure. The pigs made the tack room their headquarters. Every night they studied blacksmithing, carpentry, and other necessary trades from the books they had brought from home. Snowball also took care of organizing the others in what he called animal committees. For this he was tireless, and he formed the Egg Production Committee for the chickens, the League of Clean Tails for the cows, the Committee for the Re-Education of Wild Comrades, whose object was to tame rats and rabbits, the Movement for Whiter Wool for sheep, and many others, in addition to organizing reading and writing classes. In general, these projects were a failure. For example, the attempt to tame wild animals failed almost at the root, since they continued to behave practically the same as before, and when they were treated generously they took advantage of it. The cat joined the Re-Education Committee and acted a lot in it for a few days. Once they saw her sitting on the roof chatting with some sparrows that were out of her reach. She was telling them that all the animals were already comrades and that any sparrow whoever wanted could perch on his claw, but the sparrows preferred to refrain. Meantime it happened that Jessie and Bluebell had given birth shortly after the hay was harvested, and between them they had given the farm 9 robust puppies. As soon as they were weaned, Napoleon separated them from their mothers, saying that he would take charge of their education, took them to an attic that could only be reached by a staircase from the tack room, and there kept them in such a degree of seclusion that the rest of the farm soon forgot about its existence.
The mystery of the destination of the milk was soon cleared up. It was mixed every day in the food of the pigs. The first apples were already ripening and the grass in the orchard was covered with fruit fallen from the trees. The animals believed as a natural thing that this fruit would be distributed equally. One day, however, the order was given that all apples fallen from the trees should be collected and brought to the tack room for the pigs to eat. Shortly after this happened, some animals began to murmur, but in vain. All the pigs were agreed on this point until Snowball and Napoleon, squealing, was sent to give the necessary explanations.
"Comrades," he yelled, "I suppose you don't suppose we pigs are doing this in a spirit of selfishness and privilege. Many of us actually have an aversion to milk and apples. I personally don't like them. Our only object in eating these foods is to preserve our health. Milk and apples, this has been proven by science, contain substances absolutely necessary for the health of the pig. We pigs work with our brains. The entire administration and organization of this farm depends on us. Day and night we are watching over your happiness. For your sake we drink that milk and eat those apples. Do you know what would happen if we pigs fail in our mission? Jones would come back." "Yes, he would surely come back, comrades," exclaimed Squealing, almost pleadingly, dancing to and fro and wagging his tail. "Surely there is no one among you who wants Jones back."
Indeed, if there was one thing the animals were completely sure of, it was that they did not want Jones back. When presented in this way, they did not know what to say. The importance of preserving the health of the pigs was too evident, so it was decided without discussion that the milk and apples fallen from the trees and also the main crop of apples, when they ripen, should be reserved exclusively for pigs. Among the pigs there are two that stand out for their charisma and intelligence, Snowball and Napoleon. Snowball is a vivacious white pig. He is shown as an innovative and charismatic leader. He also has many innovative ideas and plans to progress. Napoleon is a large, dark pig who has more ambition and cunning than Snowball, but less eloquence and popularity. Both compete for the leadership of the farm and oppose each other on almost everything.
Each has their own supporters and there are violent debates. But the biggest dispute comes over the windmill on the vast prairie. Not far from the buildings, there was a small hill that was the highest point of the farm. After inspecting the land, Snowball declared that this was the right place to install a windmill that would operate a dynamo and supply electricity to the farm, that would allow light to be provided to the stables and heating in winter, and would also operate a circular saw, a straw shredder, a fodder beet cutter, and an electric milking machine. Within a few weeks, Snowball finishes perfecting the plans for the construction of the mill. Everyone comes to see Snowball's drawings at least once a day. Only Napoleon remains on the sidelines. He's been against milling from the start, shows up one day unexpectedly to examine the plans, trudges through the shed looking at everything, and suddenly raises his paw and urinates on the drawings and walks out without a word. The entire farm is deeply divided over the issue of the windmill. The animals split into two factions, each with their slogan, "Vote Snowball," and the 3-day week, which defends the theory that the windmill it will make you work less, or, vote for Napoleon and a full manger, which defends the theory that you have to work more to have more food.
At last the day of the vote arrives. Snowball thrills everyone with his eloquence. When he finished speaking there was no doubt about the result of the vote, but at that moment Napoleon stood up, cast a strange sidelong glance at Snowball and let out a shrill squeal such as no one had ever known before, and suddenly there was a terrible howl outside and 9 huge dogs with spiked collars burst into the barn and charged straight at Snowball, who barely managed to leap to the ground. Time to escape his fangs. In an instant he was out the door pursued by the dogs. Too astonished and frightened, the animals crowded at the gate to watch the chase, Snowball racing across the long grazing lands that led to the road. At first no one understands where these creatures have come from. They are the cubs that Napoleon has taken from their mothers and raised. In a particular way they are enormous in size and look like ferocious wolves. They come up to Napoleon and wag their tails like the other dogs used to do with Mr. Jones. Napoleon, accompanied by the dogs, announces that from then on there will be no more meetings on Sunday mornings and that all questions relating to the running of the farm will be resolved by a special pig committee chaired by himself. Napoleon enlists the help of Squealing, a pig who has a knack for manipulating words and convincing the other animals that Napoleon's decisions are always the best for the farm. Squealing tells the animals that Snowball was a traitor and an agent of Jones, and that Napoleon has saved the farm from his evil plans. He also tells them that Napoleon has decided to build the windmill, and that he was the one who had the idea from the beginning. The animals, who have short memories and cannot read or write, believe Squealing's lies and accept Napoleon's authority.
The animals are put to work in the windmill, which requires a lot of effort and sacrifice. Meanwhile, the pigs grab privileges like living in the farmer's house, sleeping in beds, drinking beer, and trading with neighboring farmers. Whenever the animals realize that the pigs are violating the 7 commandments, Squealing convinces them that they are wrong or that the commandments have been misinterpreted. Furthermore, the pigs secretly modify the commandments to suit their interests. For example, the 4th commandment goes from being, "No animal shall sleep in a bed," to be, "No animal shall sleep on a bed with sheets," and the 5th commandment changes from being, "No animal shall drink alcohol," to be, "No animal shall drink alcohol to excess."
The animals suffer from hunger, cold and exhaustion, but they console themselves with the thought that they are working for themselves and not for a human master. However, the farm is still threatened by external enemies, who want to recover it. Jones and other farmers try to invade the farm another time, but are driven back by the animals, who fight valiantly. In the first battle, called the Battle of the Cowshed, Snowball distinguished himself by courage and strategy, but Napoleon later accused him of actually siding with Jones. In the second battle, called the Battle of the Mill, the animals managed to defend the farm, but the mill is destroyed by a bomb made of dynamite. There a cow, 3 sheep and 2 geese died and almost everyone was wounded. Even Napoleon, who directed the operations from the rear, had the tip of his tail scratched by a pellet, but the men do not fare well either, and when the 9 dogs of Napoleon's personal guard suddenly appear from one side barking ferociously, panic seizes them and they flee. Although the animals have won, they are tired and bloody. Some, seeing their dead comrades lying on the grass, cannot hold back their tears. Squealing, who has been inexplicably absent during the fight, leaps towards them, proud of the victory, and he announces that they are going to rebuild the mill. Boxer has embedded some pellets that cause him intense pain. He is 11 years old and he is tired. They dedicate 2 whole days to the celebrations. Each animal receives an apple as a special gift. 2 ounces of corn for the birds and 3 biscuits for each dog. It is announced that the battle will be called the Battle of the Mill and that Napoleon has created a new decoration called the Order of the Green Banner, which he awards to himself.
They knew that life was hard now, and they were often hungry and cold, and usually they worked all the time. They didn't get enough sleep, but in other times, surely it had been worse, was what they liked to believe. Besides, before they had been slaves and now they were free, as Squealing kept pointing out, that was a huge difference. Although the farm has a fairly successful year, it is still short of money, short of bricks, sand and lime to build a classroom and windmill machinery. Then there are the oil lamps and candles for the house, sugar for Napoleon's table, and other necessary things like tools, iron, and dog biscuits. The rations reduced in December are reduced again in February, and the use of lanterns in Los Corrales is prohibited to save oil, although the pigs are getting fatter. Although they suffer deprivation, they have the compensation of thinking that they have a more dignified life. There are more songs, more speeches, and more processions. In April, the animal farm is proclaimed a republic, and Napoleon is unanimously elected as president. Boxer works harder than ever. One summer day at night, a sudden rumor ran through the farm. Something had happened to Boxer. He had gone out alone to drag a load of stone to the mill, and indeed the rumor was true. A few minutes later 2 pigeons arrived with the news that the Boxer had fallen and was lying on the ground and could not get up. The farm animals ran out towards the hill where they were building the windmill, and there was the Boxer on the ground, between the rails of the cart, with his neck outstretched, unable to lift his head, his eyes glassy, drenched in sweat. A trickle of blood flowed from his mouth. Squealing, who appears after a while, very worried and sorry, says that Comrade Napoleon is in great pain and that he is making arrangements to send the Boxer to Wellington Hospital for treatment. Half an hour later, when the Boxer recovers a bit, they help him to his feet and he manages to limp back to the stable. For the next 2 days he does not leave his stable, and when the van arrives to take him away, Benjamin the donkey is alone and he warns that they are going to take him away, and they all run towards there. They surround the van where they have already loaded the Boxer. Suddenly Benjamin read what's on the sign on the car: Alfred Simon's horse slaughterer and glue maker, Wellington hide and bone meal dealer, kennel services.
And they realize that they are taking a Boxer to the slaughterhouse. The animals let out a scream of horror in unison. At that moment, the man sitting on the box lashed the horses and the truck left the yard. At a fast trot, all the animals followed it, standing out Clover the horse, who made his way to the first row. The van began to accelerate. And Clover began to say, "Boxer, Boxer," and, at that moment, as if he had heard the commotion outside the van, the Boxer's face, with the white stripe on his nose, appeared in the rear window of the vehicle. They yell at him to get out of there, that they are taking him to his death. And shortly after his face disappears from the window and the tremendous drumming of hooves inside the van begins to be heard. He is trying to get out of kicked there, but they never saw the Boxer again. 3 days later, it is announced that he has died in Wellington Hospital. Despite receiving all the attention a horse can hope for, Squealing tells them that his last words were, "Long live Napoleon and the rebellion," and he tells them that, of course, he was a veterinarian, only that he had recently bought the van and that he had not yet changed the signs on it.
The pigs continue to increase their power, and their oppression over other animals. Napoleon eliminates all his rivals or dissidents, accusing them of conspiring with Snowball and having them executed by their dogs. The animals live in fear and confusion, but they continue to believe in animalism and in the goodness of Napoleon. The pigs changed the hymn, "Beasts of England," for a more moderate one called Animalia. The pigs also break the isolation of the farm and establish diplomatic relations with neighboring farmers, whom they admire and emulate. The animals finish rebuilding the windmill, which is used to grind grain instead of generating electricity. The pigs keep the profit from the sale of the grain and give the other animals a meager ration. One winter, the animals suffer from a great shortage of food, but the pigs lie to them that there is plenty. The pigs are dedicated to fattening and having fun, while the other animals work harder and longer hours. The seasons came and went and time passed and the short lives of the animals were consumed. There came a time when there was no one left except Clover the horse, Benjamin the donkey, Moses the raven and some pigs that remembered the old days before the rebellion. On the farm, they had forgotten Snowball, they had forgotten Boxer, he saved the few who had known him. There are many more creatures than before on the farm.
For many born there, the rebellion is just a vague tradition passed on by word of mouth. The farm is more prosperous and better organized, the windmill is finally finished and the farm has a thresher and a silo and several new buildings have been added. The animals are hard at work building a new mill. The farm has grown rich without making the animals themselves richer, except, of course, the pigs and dogs. As for the others, their life is the same as always. They are generally hungry, they sleep on straw, they drink at the trough, they work in the fields in winter, they are bothered by the cold and by the flies in summer. One pleasant afternoon Clover calls them all to show them something surprising, a pig walking on its hind legs. It was squealing, with a certain clumsiness, as if he lacked the habit of keeping his considerable corpulence in that position, but with perfect balance he walked around the yard. A moment later a long line of pigs came out of the front door of the house, all walking on their hind legs, some doing better than others, one or two still looking a little unsteady, and it seemed as if they or he would have liked to lean on a cane, but they all made their way across the courtyard successfully, and the last to emerge is Napoleon, walking on his two hind legs and with a whip on one of the front ones. Then all the sheep begin to endorse, for legs yes, 2 legs better, for legs yes and 2 legs better, and on the wall where the commandments were, only one remains, namely, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
No one is surprised that pigs buy a radio set and have a telephone and subscribe to various magazines and newspapers, or that Napoleon passed through the garden of the house with a pipe in his mouth. He is not even surprised when pigs Mr. Jones's clothes are taken out of the closets and put on, and Napoleon himself appears in a black coat, hunting trousers, and leather leggings. A week later a series of open carriages arrive at the farm. It is a delegation of neighboring farmers. That night loud songs and laughter resound in the house. The animals approach on tiptoe and look out the dining room window. There they fraternize, chat, play cards, drink alcohol, toast, make pacts and friendships. The animals move away, but suddenly they hear a riot of voices. They run back and look out the window again. Everyone is fighting violently. There are shouts, bangs on the table, distrustful, negative and furious looks. The origin of the problem was apparently that Napoleon and Mr. Clinton had played an ace of spades at the same time. 12 indignant voices were shouting and they were all the same. The animals outside were looking at a pig and then a man and then a pig, and again at a pig and then a man, and they couldn't tell which was which.
So far, we have seen Animal Farm, a compilation by Aldemar Hernandez. Thanks for joining us, and next week, we will meet again. Essay on Blindness by Jose Saramago. Don't forget to follow us on A Latino Loose Among Books.